Hello and welcome to the Two-Man Power Trip Wrestling host, JP John Poz. With me today here for the Dusty Rhodes tribute episode, none other than Mike Raimondi himself, a.k.a. Dusty Rhodes, who does an awesome Dusty Rhodes impersonation. Mike, welcome in. How you doing?
Maybe the American Dream. We're on the mothership station here, the Two-Man Power Trip, if you will. I'm ready to be out in public, in living color, if you will.
Love it. Why Dusty? Was he your favorite wrestler? Like what? Like I got to know right off the bat here. Why Dusty? I love it.
Baby, because he was just a common man. You had Hulk Hogan, with the vitamins and the press, and the Ultimate Warrior, loading the spaceship with the rocket fuel. But baby, he was the common man, and he was working hard with his hands, if you will.
So great. How long have you been doing it for? How long have you been doing the Dusty?
So I'll go in and out of kayfabe.
Yeah.
The first day I did it was WrestleMania 29 at MetLife Stadium because I was supposed to meet Dusty at Access, and for some reason he didn't make it. And I remember seeing Sergeant Slaughter, and Sergeant Slaughter was like, I was dressed in the whole polka dot gear, and Sergeant Slaughter's like, "Oh, sorry, buddy, Dusty went AWOL." Then like a couple hours later, he was actually at the pre-show table, and there was a whole crowd of people, and they let me go all the way to the front. And when the pre-show was over, I saw him grab security guard, and he walked all the way down up to me, and he gave me a hug, and I'm like, "Baby, Dusty, what do you think?" He's like, "I love it, baby, I love it."
What a nice guy. I like that. It's so cool of him to do that. Obviously, he was appreciative. He was loving that you were, being Dusty.
Yeah. You never think of how people are going to react to it. And I fell in love with Dusty with the polka dots. I knew nothing of Dusty as a kid. I'm a 9-year-old kid. And I tell people the short story is, I was watching wrestling since I'm like 4 years old. I was strictly WWF, WWE, and I was always used to heels versus faces. And at that time, it was Hogan Warrior, which I really wasn't a fan of as a kid. I was a big Hulkamaniac. So when Dusty came in, he was feuding with Honky Tonk Man, Big Boss Man, Macho King, Ted DiBiase. So he was feuding with all the heels that I couldn't stand, and I still love it. I just love that kind of wrestling, like the tip, heels versus faces, good guy versus bad guy.
So for me, because I'm probably around the same age, and I was young too when Dusty had came into WWF, but I never really thought of him like, oh, the polka dots as like a negative. Did you think of it, or were you right on board with it? It was kind of like cool in a weird way. Like I liked it.
So I feel like if you were introduced to Dusty during that WWF run, you don't think the polka dots or rib at all. You just thought it was the bright, cartoonish colors. And I always tell people, go back and look at Survivor Series when he came in, and you see the characters. It's the Red Rooster, El Matador, Greg Valentine with the black hair, Rhythm and Blues. I mean, Brutus Beefcake. They're all loud, colorful. But the people who grew up on Dusty in the NWA and all that believe that obviously it was a rib. So I think it depends on your, what you were watching, when you got introduced to him. But baby, I'm sorry. I was going, I got to remind everyone that I got those polka dots over, baby. Whether it started as a rib or it was a vision by Vince McMahon, I got it over, and they're still making the dolls and the T-shirts, baby. They're still selling them.
Yes, so true. And if you think about it, if it really was a rib, nobody kind of let him in on it, or he went so above and beyond it, he turned a rib into something that got over. Because listen to the crowd. Every time he comes out, every show, there was never like, oh, this guy's in polka dots, he's a joke now. He was always super over, like big time over with the crowd.
Yeah, I went back and watched. I watch as much Dusty as I can, and a lot of the WWE footage is available because of Peacock and YouTube and all that stuff. And the crowd the pops for him were huge. And I always thought he came in June 1989. And I remember as a kid, the biggest thing of that summer was Batman, the Tim Burton Batman movie.
Yep.
And I started myself, did WWE just be like, or Vince be like, black and yellow is the hot, I mean, black and yellow was everywhere in the summer of 89. I remember it as a kid. And maybe they were like, let's use that color scheme to sell. That's a very popular color scheme right now. That's just me really taking a deep dive into it.
Yeah, wow. I never even thought about it like that, but you're right. That was like the thing that summer. That was huge. That was, the blockbuster movie of 1989 was Batman.
Yeah, and he came in, in June. So who knows? I mean, no one really. I mean, so many people have told stories about it. And is it a rib? Is it not a rib? When I met Teal and Michelle Mama Rhodes at StarCast a couple years ago, I was wearing the polka dots, and I said to both of them, I said, listen, I want to hear from you guys. What do you think of the polka dots? Me wearing these polka dots? I said I never looked at it as a rib. The fans love it still. I said it's very popular, and they loved it. They said polka dots are fine, and Dusty's wife Michelle, she said Dusty made a lot of money with those polka dots, and they were said yeah. So sometimes I don't want to call it hate, but the opinions I get of wearing polka dots, I always go say, listen, I got directly from the source that polka dots are good, polka dots are cool, polka dots okay. So they have the last word, obviously.
Yes, I agree. And the interesting thing too is when you're watching right with the polka dots, it's not like he was getting like deep pushed or anything. You know what I mean? He was still feuding with Macho Man and Ted DiBiase and Boss Man when he was getting a big push after he just was feuding with Hogan pretty much right after that. So it wasn't like he was getting deep pushed with the polka dots either. He was getting a nice little shove there.
Baby, you forgot the honky tonk man. I could sing better than him. I could dance better than him. I'm prettier than he is, baby. He thinks he could sing. I could sing, baby. I'll sing some Willie Nelson for him, if you will.
Yeah, he could sing a little, right? We've heard him sing. He actually could.
My God, he was one in a million. I can't even, do the impression and everything. It's impossible to replicate who he was. It's impossible. He was one in a million, one in a billion. He's so multi-talented.
So you were a fan of him basically since he debuts WWF June of '89. You're a fan of him, and you were a fan of him ever since, or was there times where you're like, I don't know about his return in WCW or something? Like, were you always following him?
Well, it's funny because when I was a kid, I didn't even know what WCW was, baby. WCW, like, what is this? And I never forget my dad was flipping through the channels and WCW was on, and I pretty think it was Ric Flair on TV, and I'm like, Dad, wrestling's on. I'm like, why'd you change the channel? And he's like, oh, that's Southern wrestling. We're not gonna like it.
Wow.
Growing up in New York, in Brooklyn, New York, it was Bruno Sammartino, it was The Garden. It was not, until probably they got on TBS, the mothership station, if you will, 605. I think I remember telling my friend, before you knew anything as a kid, and I'm like, man, I can't believe Dusty Rhodes, he hasn't been on TV, where he is. And my friend, who was a big WCW guy, he's like, you mean the commentator? I'm like, he's not a commentator. And then you go to your friend's house and you're like, oh my God, Dusty's on commentary with a cowboy hat and a suit jacket? Like, what's happening? You're a 9-10-year-old kid. You have no idea. Yep. But no, I love the whole polka dot era. I love that whole, and obviously then I just started following, Dustin and Cody, and now his grandsons are breaking into the business. So I'm a Rhodes for life.
Love it. So WWF guy, you grew up where exactly?
In Brooklyn, New York.
Brooklyn. Okay, so definitely WWF guy, definitely
Yes.
Northeast guy. Yeah. So would you go to MSG? Or would you go? Where would you go? Like if you were going live to the shows?
We went to Nassau Coliseum a few times, and one of my earliest memories is seeing WrestleMania 2 on closed circuit at the theater at the Garden. I remember that as a kid. I had my Hulk Hogan and King Kong Bundy, big LJN guys, and I was banging them together all night.
Yes, nice. Bundy would cause a lot of damage, by the way, because it weighed like 12 pounds. You know what I mean? That Bundy LJN, that was crazy.
Yeah, the Bundy LJN was no joke. If you threw that at your kid brother or somebody or dropped it on your foot, it was painful.
Yeah, it's so crazy. It's like, oh my God, this thing's like an actual weapon. It's not even a toy. It's an actual like weapon. Crazy.
The 300 pounds of blue-eyed soul, if you will.
Yes. So always a Hulkamaniac. That's like your first favorite was Hulk?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I remember my dad putting in a tape, and he would tape a lot of it because it was on late, and he's like, Hulk Hogan's gonna fight the Sheik for the title, and he would show me tape all the Saturday Night main events, and I would wake up as a kid Sunday morning, crack of dawn, and he's like, all right, just press play on the VCR and you could watch it. Don't wake me up in the morning, Yeah, definitely Hogan. But like I said before, I think the Dusty was the timing of Dusty when he came in when Hogan and Warrior were feuding. And I wasn't into it as a kid. And I kind of felt that Hogan was going to lose. And yeah, that's when I really got into Dusty and became a fan.
With Dusty, right? So he's there, like you mentioned, Honky Tonk and different guys. What are some of your favorite like matches for Dusty for WWF?
Man, I love the Survivor Series match, the Undertaker debut. It's just it's just so good, and watching it now, realizing how Dusty put him over in that match, and I just remember as a kid, just like I can hear Gorilla Monsoon like still say, "Oh, the American Dream's in trouble." He's going to work on the American Dream, and also probably the Macho King. The whole feud pretty much was just great. I mean, back and forth, they would go back and forth. Maybe the common man, if you will, with the common people versus the king looking down on everyone, if you will.
My thing with that, I wish I would have got a one-on-one Mania match, like and like a longer match. You know what I mean? I feel like they were cutting it short a little bit there. I don't know why.
Well, baby, if we would have went one-on-one, we would have stole the show, and Vince McMahon didn't want that. So he said you gotta team up with the Sweet Sapphire and Sensational, Scary Sheriff, if you will. And I actually heard that recently. Someone had said that that match was made a mixed tag match because they were afraid that maybe that match that was so heel versus face, it might have, got the crowd out of Hogan Warrior. I don't, you hear these things on the internet so many years later, but it might make sense.
Right. I don't know if it's necessarily true, but it does kind of make sense if they're like, all right, we don't want Savage to steal the show again. We might take away from Hogan Warrior. It's possible because they built shows differently back then. It wasn't like, oh, they wanted everything. They wanted to build towards the main event.
Right. And you just had mentioned Savage steal the show again. Like, a lot of people think that him and Steamboat stole the show at WrestleMania 3. Yep. I don't think it would have been a big technical match. It wasn't Dusty was a brawler, but it had a lot of, people into that feud. People were emotionally invested in that feud. And Savage had a lot of heat, and Dusty had, was super popular at the time, probably one of the most popular faces at the time.
Yes, for sure. Did you like the Dusty vignettes that he would do with as like the plumber and all that other stuff? Did you like that?
Baby, you can't beat my prices, but you sure can beat my meat, baby. They're so classic. They're so classic. I don't have enough time to do it, but I always say to myself and my buddies, I'm like, I really got to try and recreate some of those. They would be very easy to recreate. the pizza and the plumber and everything like that. I liked that whole, I liked that whole time of him in WWF. That was my childhood, and I've watched it so many times. I'm almost everything he did during that only 18, 19 months he was there. But I took a deep dive into it, from everything he wore to everything he said to every match. So that polka dot era it's deep in the brain.
So, like when the guys had vignettes, especially back then, is really when they would do those vignettes. It was just like kind of introducing the character and the commonplace. Did you think anything of it though? Then it's like wow, like who is this guy? Like, what's he doing? Like, what? He's a pizza guy now. He's the. Did you think of anything like that?
I mean, I don't even remember as a kid. I don't think I really started taking an interest into him until he started wrestling. I don't. I remember seeing him as a kid, but I don't remember paying too much attention to them. But it was kind of weird because when he came out, he kind of didn't have any of those gimmicks. Maybe I was thinking, well, maybe they're going to every match he's going to come out in a different, one of these different vignettes, and then he comes out in a tie-dye tank top and black shorts, and it's a little confusing. I think might have been they were kind of unsure of what they were going to do with him at the time, like in regards to attire or gimmick. But
It's so interesting the way like you just kind of was like, oh, I guess everybody has like a vignette back then, or everybody has like silly, over the top like acting, and it just kind of all fit into place. It didn't seem out of the ordinary for WWF during that time period, even though when you kind of look back, you're like, Dusty's like this like legend, and they're making him do like funny vignettes, but he goes, he goes into it and he didn't mind. Like he just goes with it and does his best with it.
yeah, like I said, if you didn't know him in his NWA, before, you probably thought nothing of it. But a lot of people that fell in love with Dusty, with the bunkhouse and the cowbell and the bleeding and all that, they were not into it. That's not the Dusty that they grew up with. It was almost more of like a cartoon character.
When you look at it too, which is just crazy to think, but his theme song might be the greatest theme song of all time. That he's just a common man. That's one of the best.
Baby, he's just a common man working hard with his hands, baby. I think Dusty was very ahead of his time with the theme music in NWA. I mean, he came out to Purple Rain. He came out to I Need a Hero. He came out to Old Time Rock and Roll.
Midnight Rider. Yeah.
Midnight Rider. But believe it, the theme that sticks is the Common Man Boogie theme. And maybe WWE, their goal was to, that's their theme. He used other themes a lot more than that one. And he was mixing pop culture with his themes in NWA, Purple Rain during Starrcade. But people more remember him for that theme that he only used for, like I said, a year and a half. But I think that was WWE's marketing. Like, every time you see this guy, that theme is going to play. And a funny short story, I actually met Jimmy Hart, and because Jimmy Hart created the theme, and I said, baby, how did you come up with that, Jimmy? It's great. It's a great song. And he said, Dusty had two requests. He said it had to have cowbell in it, and it had to have a lot of soul in it, baby, a lot of soul, the song.
Nice, yes.
So Jimmy Hart said the cowbell's in the beginning, and he went to a studio with kind of like just, kind of like the Supremes kind of feel the song.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And that's what they got. And that was, he said that was Dusty's request for the song. And it's just iconic now.
Man, it could be arguably the greatest theme song. It's definitely up there, I think, as far as wrestling theme songs. It's got to be. It's got to at least be considered.
Yeah, I would say at least top 5. I know a lot of like Attitude Era fans and all other, I think of that era. It's definitely, it's got to be top 5.
What do you think about Sweet Sapphire? What do you think about her?
Baby, Sweet Sapphire, they said Dusty, I want to pay with this common woman, super fan, if you will. when I was a kid, I mean, I bought it. It literally looked like he picked her out of the crowd, which he did in the story.
Yeah.
And it just worked. I mean, you would think that putting her with him, she didn't have much experience. She had wrestled a little bit, and she was more of like a crew, ring crew kind of person, and driving the wrestlers around. But you really believed as a kid that he's like, baby, I'm not gonna have all this, all these managers. I'm gonna pick her right out of the crowd, baby. She's got to be a common woman. And it kind of showed Dusty's, relationship with the fans. That he's just a normal guy, and now he's bringing in this just normal super fan with him. So she and I actually keep in contact with one of her sons on Facebook, and he's always liking my stuff. And when I went to WrestleMania in Philly last year, some woman was actually cosplaying Sapphire, and I picked her out in the crowd, and we couldn't believe. I looked at her and she looked at me, and we just couldn't believe each other. And we took a picture together, and I was like, "That is the best polka dots out here, baby. Not mine. Yours is better."
Did you do any dancing with her? Did you do that?
No, we didn't do it. We didn't do it. We didn't boogie down. What I'm saying? We didn't boogie down, but it was just funny when we saw each other. I just was, you just like, what are the odds of you're at WrestleMania and I'm dressed up in the full polka dot head to toe with the chalk line jacket, everything. And here's this woman with this shirt, the whole thing. And she had a sign and it said, I walked with Dusty. So Cody, it said, I walked with Dusty, and her son was dressed as Cody. So Cody, could finish the story and stuff. It was just pretty cool.
Love that. Now, I was at a house show. I mentioned this to you briefly. It was a house show in Trenton a couple of years ago. Not only was Cody there, not only were you there, you were brought into the ring by Cody. Was that unexpected? How the hell did that happen?
Baby, I say my mother was no bumps, only pops, baby.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sitting there, and I'm with my nephew, and somebody from security comes over to me. And they're like, "Sir, we need to speak with you." And I was like, "Okay, is everything all right?" And he's like, "Where are you sitting?" I'm like, "I'm sitting here." And he's like, "Well, I need you to get in your seat and stay in your seat." And I said, "Man, that's kind of weird. Do they think I'm going to do something crazy? I would never do anything, like that. Obviously, I'm just having fun, wearing the polka dots and stuff." And Cody says, I have he says, "I have a request. Is Dusty in the arena?" And he's like, "Can you come out to the ring?" And my nephew's jaw just dropped. I mean, we looked at each other, and the crowd's going nuts. And the funny thing is, he wanted me to jump over the guardrail, which I couldn't. It's like super. So I actually took the walk all the way around down the aisle.
Yeah.
And got in the ring, and it was unbelievable. It's a blur, really. It was such a blur. I mean, I remember the lights and the sound. I remember hugging Cody, but Cody really gets the credit for people discovering me doing this. Back-to-back years in Trenton. The year before that, he's calling me up to the guardrail and do a Dusty impression. And 1 year later, I'm in the ring with him. So Cody gets all the credit for people, discovering me and going viral.
That is so awesome. So cool. Did he know, how did he know you were there? I guess somebody told him, I'm guessing, or the security guy must have told him?
I mean, I'm kind of hard to miss, I'm taking pictures with fans. And
yeah, true.
I had seen I don't know, somebody outside the arena, security took a picture of me. He goes, "I take a picture of you?" And he says, "I'm sending it to Cody." And I said, "Oh man," I'm like, "This Cody's got a lot of stuff going on. He doesn't want to be bothered with this." And he's like, "No, he wants to see it." So they kind of knew, they probably kind of knew from past experiences of me going that I was a good fan, and it's it was a cool moment. It's unfortunate there's really no more house shows, and I don't know if we'll ever see that again.
Yeah, what a shame. And just like that, TKO comes in and that ruins the best thing. I love house shows. To me, they're better than they're better than normal, TV tapings and stuff. I know they still do the Christmas one, but I feel like they need to do more. And the smaller arenas like Trenton is perfect. It's not even that small. It's like 8,000 people fit in there. So I mean, it's a good sized house show arena.
Baby, when they're selling out stadiums, going to the pay window every night, if you will, they're not going 8,000, baby. They're going 80,000.
The pay window, if you will.
Pay window, baby.
Now,
It's taking it to the pay window.
what do you think is Dusty's legacy when you look at his career? What do you think? Like when people look back, what are they going to think?
I think, I mean, there's so much. I think it's just impact of the business as a whole. I think, his impact of he was just an innovator. He was so ahead of his time in the ring, as a booker, training the NXT. It's such a body of work. It's from beginning to end, his body of work is just so good. And, what he gave everything he had. Triple H, to quote him, he said he gave everything he had to this business, and he did. Up until the day he passed, unfortunately. And it's just his body of work, if you put it all together, and you also factor in that he was a great husband and a great father, and he just was loved by everyone, which is even more important than everything else he did. It's just the perfect bow on who he was.
Now, as we hit the wind down here, head towards the finish, where could everybody see you as Dusty? Like, where you got stuff coming up? Are you going to be doing more Dusty? Are you going to be doing some more cosplay, if you will?
If you will, baby, I just buy a ticket, put on some gear, and have fun. But I will probably go to Fanatics Fest in next month, one of those days. We went last year, had a good time. They actually let me do that. They downloaded the Common Mad Boogie so I could do the Dusty entrance because they didn't have it available. I'll probably be there. I go to local shows in Jersey around. There's so much going on. SummerSlam is maybe SummerSlam, depending on the pay window. There's hard times going on right now with those ticket prices, baby.
Yeah, they're expensive.
But, if you want to follow me, look at my videos and stuff at Dusty Tribute on Instagram and all social media. I started doing this in WrestleMania 29. I think it was 2013. It's been a long time, but it's been a fun ride. And I have to say that if it wasn't for having the blessing of the Rhodes family, I'm very lucky that they allow me to do this because they're his real legacy. Dusty Rhodes Foundation, and Dustin School, Rhodes Wrestling Association, Nightmare Factory, Turnbuckle Champion Wrestling. That's Dusty's real. They do all the legwork. They do all the hard work, and I get to have all the fun. But I have to definitely give them all the credit.
How about you? Where could everybody find and follow you, or you just want to do Instagram? What about X and all your other socials?
I've changed everything to Dusty Tribute. It just was just fitting. And if you
Nice.
Google Dusty Rhodes fan, you'll find me. So look for the polka dots. And I think I've changed all my social media to Dusty Tribute. It's just people were like, I always said, I'm just a fan who bought tickets and put on the gear and went to have fun. And people are like, oh, he's an impersonator. He's this. And people are like, no, you do more of a tribute to him.
Right.
So,
yeah.
And I feel it is. It's a heartfelt tribute from a fan. And I just was like, Dusty Tribute is just like the perfect name for everything I do. And I was like, it's just, it's easy to find.
That is perfect. And you're part of this Dusty tribute episode for, for the annual Dusty tribute show that we do here on the show. So absolutely perfect. Couldn't be any more perfect.
Baby, if fifth, if fifth like a glove, if you will.
Mike, aka Dusty, thank you so much for all the time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It's really been an honor, a pleasure, and to the Dusty's fans miss him greatly. They still yearn for him. They still, they miss him greatly, and he's greatly missed by his fans. That's all I can say as a fan's perspective.